So today's topic is on something I think applies to everyone, just about any field that you work in, your professional, your own personal career and experiences. And it's important because it's going to help you manage how and why you do things a little bit better, and maybe give you a little bit more guidance, because as I talk through these 4 specific areas that are interrelated, some of the areas at times take more dominance in your decision making in your life, and maybe it shouldn't. In certain areas, maybe you waste a little more time in. And this kind of started initially with social media and my own personal business and my own development, but ironically it has parallels to athletics, which I work in, and I'll use basketball and my own personal stuff at times. But again, I'm just going to use those as anecdotes and examples, but I think the concepts apply pretty universally. So when it comes to doing stuff, I'm going to again reference like social media in this case, or basketball. Typically we do things for the acute, so like the very immediate action. The long term, we know something is beneficial, we know it's not going to immediately reward us, but we're going to stick with it. Schooling is an example of that, going to a 4-year college degree or getting a PhD or going to get a certification. Then there is potential benefits. This is something where it's in your field, you know others have it, you think it might be useful, maybe it's a corollary to your field or something that can be added into your field. An example is someone who's on social media, maybe getting an education in videography or how to shoot certain shots is beneficial in terms of your cinematography. And then the 4th one is exploratory, and this one is just something maybe totally out of left field. You don't really know how it's going to be helpful, but you might dive into it because it's fun, because you enjoy it. It's not really with the intent for it to be super helpful, but at the end of the day, you can probably extract some information out of it. So the first one is acute, and this is like the most obvious one, and I think people bias it too much. An example on social media is, let's say a lot of people like my post. I make a post about jumping, and everyone likes my post about jumping. I am more inclined to now make more posts about jumping. But what happens if jumping isn't something I personally want to continuously post about? So I keep posting about jumping, people like jumping, I keep posting more about it, people keep liking it, and now I'm stuck infinitesimally posting about jumping. And I've basically been in a situation where I now have to kind of feed what I have started, essentially. So if you just focus on the acute, you just keep doing the acute over and over again, and it's like a wave. Yeah, you can ride that wave, but like on social media, things can sometimes come crashing down. And if they come crashing down on you and you're no longer popular, or jumping's no longer popular, and you have no other content out there, you might be limited. It's very nearsighted. A potential long-term or a longer term, long is more than acute basically, it can be like medium and long-term, would be something like, oh, I am on social media, I know right now I'm not getting lots of traction, but I'm gonna keep posting because the only way to get more attention is by posting itself. And maybe you start off by doing small speaking events that you maybe don't think are very important, or maybe podcasts, whatever it might be, but you put in the effort to build that portfolio. So in the long term, you know it's gonna be really beneficial. Making connections, doing certain internships, it's pretty obvious that this is gonna be helpful, but you might not see a result at the end of the day. This is sometimes easier for others than certain people, other professions. Like if you're wanting to be a medical student, or you want to be a doctor, obviously the long-term investment is going to schooling, and it's very well defined what your long-term actions are going to be. But for other people, it's less defined. If you're a strength coach and you become coaches teaching athletes and you're doing really well, what's next for you? Maybe it is the pursuit of certain knowledge and information within a field, but it's not as clear cut, right? If you're a medical student, you have classes you're going to take, you have a school you're going to go to, versus a more undefined long-term option. And the third one is kind of this potential benefit, and this is where you're not really sure it fits in with your field. It's kind of yes or no, kind of high risk, not really high risk, but potential reward, potential totally nothing at all. An example is I play basketball. I might never use my left hand, but then in training, I might spend 5% of my time shooting left-hand floaters. And a floater is like a push shot. And maybe I'm really good at that. I never knew I was going to be good at that shot, but it became really useful. It also could be something I never utilize. So this is kind of just, it's more of a directed potential benefit. And I mean by that, it's like directed in the sense that it's not arbitrary. The arbitrary stuff is more exploratory. You're not just randomly doing things. You're like, oh, I think I might use that. I don't know if long term I even need it, but it's potentially beneficial. Or it's something that you could save for later. In that sense, it might be like an internship with marketing, something that you're like, well, this is something that is part of being a strength coach, or is part of personal training, but I'm not going to use it right away. There is some potential down the line. I might get into marketing. Maybe it's a certification you go and get that's not marketing related. Maybe it's a certification and they have all these courses online you can get for advertisement management. You're like, well, I'm not really sure it's going to be super useful, but it might be. So that's kind of the potential side. And then there is the exploratory side. This is something that you can pursue just for your own enjoyment. Think about this like, oh, I'm going to take a class on the theory on general and special relativity. Now, why would you take that? Well, we have no idea. There might be zero parallel to your profession. It might have zero impact on your career, but you just find it enjoyable. You find it beneficial for your own personal well-being, and there's a small likelihood that it could be useful, but it could actually ignite a spark of interest in a whole other area. You might read a book and you might say, oh, I really enjoy the idea of getting into healthcare. I have no idea. Pick a random topic because you read that book. You expose yourself to a wide variety of stuff. It's like seeing a beautiful painting and you're now inspired when you otherwise were not going to be inspired. So it's totally exploratory. The outcome is super random. And so you have these 4 different categories. And when we do things on social media and you have some success and maybe you're finding some traction, it's really easy to get obsessed with the acute, the short term. I want to keep that momentum going. But then you might all of a sudden realize that momentum was built on an existence or a reality where it was kind of just a wave, and now you have no backup plan. Not because you don't have a physical plan, but because you don't have skills and traits and qualities that allow you to go into maybe other fields. You didn't have anything for potential benefit, you didn't have anything for exploration, you didn't do much long-term benefit. When you do things for exploration and potential benefit, you might have the ability to develop some unique assets and qualities that can be used in other fields as the environment is constantly changing. Maybe now businesses don't view Instagram, they do now probably, but they maybe don't view social media as beneficial as it could be in a year or 2 years or 3 years. So you're going to learn more about the ins and outs of social media. So when you work for a business, you can do that. Maybe AI, you're doing some chat GPT stuff, not because it has any immediate yield, but in the future you think, well, I think odds are that's going to play a role in future business stuff, and I'd like to have at least some asset and skills in that area so I can contribute. So those are the 4 key areas I like to think about. And there's some, again, clear mistakes people make where it's getting obsessed with the acute. It's constantly chasing the long term, by the way, is another one, and never doing anything in the acute. People always are constantly maybe just trying to, oh, down the road I'll do this, down the road I'll do this, down the road I'll do this, and they never actually do anything. So a lot of times people are kind of at an impasse. They don't do anything, and certain people just only do things with no plan or action. And then at the end of the day, you're kind of left overly biased towards one area or the other. You want to have like a nice portfolio of things you're doing, some acute stuff, playing to your strengths, some long-term stuff, building your weaknesses up, some potential things where you're exploring stuff that are alternative avenues, and some exploratory things where you're just being exposed to a variety of information so you can acquire more information so you can learn more. And that's a huge bit of advice I think for anybody out there. It doesn't matter your career, doesn't matter your profession. It's actual professional helpful advice versus just yelling at you to be motivated and stuff, because that's silly. Just being motivated and screaming about things and saying that you need to just go do things isn't logical either, and then not doing anything isn't logical either, because doing things are not all equal. If you just go out and create action and begin to do stuff, that's not all actions have the same potential results and don't yield the same potential benefits. Whether you're training professional athletes or you want to become a better videographer, this is something you can apply within your own professional field and your own life and whatnot. So I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys enjoy the rain. We have the water trickling down the side of our house. Hopefully that's not too annoying in the background. I hope not. I'm not going to reshoot the video. So I appreciate you guys listening as always. Hope you enjoy. Take care. And thanks for liking and subscribing.